Good morning, and welcome to another uh, episode or video of Family History with Chris. Happy Memorial Day. This is it's Sunday today, but uh, I I wanted to get this in. It's been interesting since I've started this. Uh, First thing on my mind is like, oh, what can I share? Uh, thinking about my ancestors and other things like that. So yeah, things are changing. Memorial Day. I wanted to share with you what I my experience with Memorial Day has been. Back when I was growing up, uh, Sunday evenings uh, we would go out to Blackfoot, Idaho, and visit my dad's side of the family in the Riverside Cemetery. Uh, and so we would do that, and then afterwards go out for we'd go to Arctic Circle. And if you don't know what Arctic Circle is, it's similar to McDonald's, except they're more focused on like different flavored shakes and things like that. Um, and then we'd go home. And then the following Monday or Memorial Day, we would go to my other grandparents' house, and they had a bunch of lilac trees. So we'd pick some lilacs and then go visit the graves on my mom's side. Most of which I remember is the Fielding Memorial Cemetery. There we'd see my great grandparents and my grandparents. Nope, not my grandparents. My great grandparents. I remember them, and there were other people. I think there was like a cousin or two that were stillborn that we'd go see. Um, anyway, that's and they would give them flowers and things like that, and that's what I knew what Memorial Day is. However, growing up, I find out it Memorial Day is actually supposed to be remembering the veterans and the people who fought for our freedoms. And so I I want to just take a moment and uh, give it a shout out to all of those veterans out there. Uh, Probably is a veteran that's watching, but that's okay. You know somebody, and shout out to them. My father-in-law is actually a veteran too, and he was a captain on a Navy ship. Um, well, captain in the Navy. I'm going to say that. I don't know much else. Maybe I need to talk to him, learn about his history. So today, what I really wanted to do is I was going to go and show uh, a memory or two about one of my granduncles on my dad's side. His name was Aaron Francis Hatch, and when I went there, there are no memories. So one thing I'd like to do is, eventually I want to help show how you can add memories to these people if you have anything, because like with Aaron, I didn't know he was married. My dad, I think I found some information that said he was. Also, my dad says, "Yeah, that's the person I was named after." It's like, well, cool. And he did serve in the Black Hawk Indian War back in the 1800s. So he's a veteran. He got a flag, and that's what I wanted to do, but I couldn't find anything. So I found Thomas E. Ricks. I know I've talked about him a little bit, and he has a lot. Some people don't have much, and others there's just a lot of talk to talk about. But I found a few stories that I didn't know about, so I wanted to read these to you. One thing was about the railroads. Uh, Before I start, I want to let you know what I know about Thomas E. Ricks. He's actually my third great grandfather. He settled Rexburg. Ricks College was named after him, which is now BYUI. I think he even settled some towns up in Canada. He went up that way. I know the streets were wide in Shelley, Idaho, and Firth, Idaho, because he was sent up by Brigham Young, and that was the idea, because he knew at some point they're going to need this space, kind of like State Street out in Utah, Salt Lake City area. So wide because Brigham Young knew that space was going to be needed. Back then, they had horse and buggies or whatever and didn't really need a whole lot of space, but it's a good thing they did that, because that street can get busy. Anyway, back to this. One thing I saw, someone, thank you, Gail Hendricks Provaser, for contributing to Thomas C. Ricks, talking about railroads. And, my father, he was into railroading and stuff. I'm into railroading a little bit too, but I don't know if he knew this. So I'm going to just share this with you. The settlement of Cache Valley was really progressing. For several years, abundant harvest had rewarded the labor of the farmer, resulting in overflowing granaries, but the settlers had no success to trade. There was great need for transportation and market. Successive gold discoveries in Idaho and Montana had developed and thriving freighting business during the decade of the 60s. I think that's the 1860s, not the 1960s. But, that's just what I'm guessing. The scarcity of food in Idaho and Montana attracted the Cache Valley farmers to those markets. Cache Valley leaders were thinking about their railroad needs. The gold fields of the north would make a ready cash market for the agricultural products of northern Utah. When we are aware of these facts, then we read in the life story of William Dorris that he was a railroad builder. We are able to appreciate the importance of his work. Okay, William Dorris, I'm not sure who he is. Oh, is this guy right here. Oh, and here's something funny. Okay, so, don't know who this guy is? Well, check this out. Just click on his name. Brings him up. Oh, 6th of November, 1829. He's got memories. Died 6th of May, 1909. So, yeah, the 60s, I'm pretty sure it was 1860s. If you want to know how he's related, push this button, view relationship. And apparently, he is the husband of my sixth cousin 4 times removed. Like we had shown before. It's like, oh, okay. Well, I know I'm related to Thomas E. Ricks, but I didn't know I was related to him. So their kid would be my 7th cousin 3 times removed, or something like that. Okay, back to the story. Where were we? Let's see. On August 23rd, 1871, the Utah Northern Railroad Company was organized. The building between Ogden and Franklin was accomplished by farmers living along the right of way. Their use of their own teams and equipment, such as plows and scrapers, the builders were to receive railroad stock in lieu of wages. So they're just handing out pieces of paper or something. A giant celebration was held at Logan on January 31st, 1873, when the first train pulled into that station. That's fun. Sections of roadwork were successfully linked successfully linked the cooperative labors of farmers in the village of Hyde Park, Smithfield, Richmond, Lewiston, and Franklin. By April 30th, 1874, the line was tied and ironed to Franklin. Some of the key men in the construction of the Utah Northern were Thomas E. Ricks, Mariner W. Merrill, William D. Hendricks, Loren Farr, William Tolley, Thomas Lewis, Thomas H. Durant, George Barraclough, William C. Armand. Makes me wonder how many of those people I'm related to. Apparently this guy too. So yeah, so how many are you related to any of those people? Now the Utah Northern was in financial difficulty. An extension to the Montana mines was imperative for the success of the enterprise, but the proposed northern extension could not be undertaken without a new source of funds. That was true because all phases of construction beyond Franklin would have to be paid for. Mormon settlements north of that point was too slender to provide the sinews necessary for the cooperative effort in the building of the road and supplying the ties. Jay Gould was contacted. He organized the Utah Northern was formed. The railroad started into Idaho. Superintendent George W. Thatcher was the key man in the entire undertaking. He led the contracts. The principal contractors were Mariner W. Merrill, William D. Hendricks, and Thomas C. Ricks. These contractors were able leaders, which large families of young men who became good railroaders. The contractors established logging camps and sawmills where needed and kept the work moving steadily. Since grading progressed simultaneously along the 20-mile stretch and was divided among a dozen grading details, an overseer was needed. The role of coordinator was performed by Mariner W. Merrill, and he rode along the grade on a fleet little mare named Fanny. The track laying crew, I don't know why I can't read today, under the supervision of William D. Hendricks and Thomas C. Ricks, usually pressed closely upon the graders. They followed the similar pattern of activity in respect to camp distribution and management. The bridge timber and ties were cut in the forest adjacent to the right-of-way, and there were at least two areas major importance, namely Cottonwood Valley and the Beaver Canyon area. The former valley was located a dozen miles northeast of Swan Lake. It is estimated that 2 million ties were cut in the region. The railroad camp of Mormon workers was greatly different from most railroad camps. The terminus had 550 people and was very quiet and orderly. The railroad company would not receive a load freight on Sundays. Blessings were regularly asked upon the food, and there were family prayers. As a result, there was something of a patriarchal atmosphere instead of a conventional hell on wheels environment. Wages were paid in precious metals such as gold eagles, double eagles, and $5 gold pieces, silver dollars, and lesser silver coins and nickels, but no pennies. When the spring of 1880 finally came, the grade and track was gradually pushed towards the Montana lines. The achievement of Monida Pass on a big celebration. My dad likes Monida Pass. I do too. It's a pretty area. Montana was very isolated in the need of a railroad. Adequate transportation was imperative for the progress of mining economy. For a score of years, the threat of famine was ever present in the Montana mining camps because they were so remote from the arteries of commerce. At 11:10 p.m. on December 21st, 1881, a locomotive pulled the first passenger train into Butte. At that time, Butte was an outpost of civilization, but after that date, it may be said, the real mining business of Montana had begun. Furthermore, the citizens who lived along the railroad were now able to market their produce and receive supplies under more favorable conditions. In the spring of 1884, a branch line was constructed to Anaconda. By fall, the Utah and Northern reached its final objective. The place was named Garrison in honor of the noted abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison. Garrison's population and business more than doubled upon the advent of the Utah and Northern. The distance between Garrison and Ogden was 466 miles, which made the Utah Northern one of the longest narrow-gauge railroads in the world. The distribution of mainline mileage by states was Utah 76.45 miles, Idaho 206.36 miles, and Montana 183.8 miles. The cost of construction of this tri-state railroad was estimated at $7.2 million. Oh, is that right? Hundreds, thousands, millions. Yeah, $7.2 million. Just think, back in that day, that's a lot of money. Thus, the commercial prosperity of Cache Valley and its commencement immediately subsequent to the development of the wonderfully rich placer mines of Montana, whence came annually a number of years a constant stream of shining dust in exchange for the accumulated products of the valley. Now, there was a ready cash market for the agricultural product of northern Utah. Thus was given to commerce in Cache Valley an impetus previously known and under the influence of which her business men wisely and promptly laid the foundations of permanent prosperity. This is from the historical accounts of William Doris Hendricks and Families, compiled by Tad D. Hendricks. So I appreciate that. Okay, so that was one. Let's go back to memories. I want to show you this. There's like a lot of memories that Thomas E. Ricks has. This one, I haven't read this one, but it's about Elizabeth Jane Shoup, which I believe is my third great grandmother. So, Thomas E. Ricks, he was one of the polygamists, and I come from this line. And yeah, it was kind of fascinating. I haven't, maybe I can do another episode or something and read this one. I'll have to read it. Let's see. There's obituaries, pictures, the escape of Joel and Thomas E. Ricks. Okay, here's something I didn't know, and it looks rather short. And then you look at it, then it's not really. Different accounts. Let's see what it says. The following 10 accounts of Thomas E. Ricks shooting on the east bank of the Elkhorn River on 6th of June, 1848, have been prepared here for the Joel Ricks family organization after the thorough search of the Plains Journal by Lyndon W. Cook. The typescript have been carefully taken from the original, except where indicated, and presented below in a form which approximates the original closely as possible with the exception of some bracketed words for clarification. The accounts stand unaltered as to grammar, punctuation, and misspelling. The first 5 accounts appear to be contemporaneous records. The 6th, Heber C. Kimball's account, although dated 6th of June 1848, appears to be later reconstruction, or at least later recordings, of the incident and became the official church account. And the remaining 4 accounts recorded about 10 days later are based on a letter from Heber C. Kimball's company to Brigham Young's company, which details the confrontation with the Indians. Okay, talking about Indians. Remember, this is a different time frame. We live in a completely different time, okay? Honestly, I believe today's day is messed up. Even though they're saying Indians and it should be Native Americans, it's a record and that's what it says. So that's how I'm going to go with it. It's almost comparing apples to oranges, but they're still both fruit, you know? By the way, thank you, Carol Y. Williams, for contributing. I appreciate this. I kind of want to read the 6th one. So let's see what the church records. Because see, like church records, you really don't hear this. You hear more about, oh yeah, what does this, more about the apostles and prophets and things like that. He wasn't, but it seems that he was important. So Tuesday, 6th, about 8 o'clock, an alarm was brought to the camp by one of the herd boys that Indians were driving off some of the cattle. From the herd about 2 miles below, a number of brethren immediately started in pursuit, some on foot and some on horses. Howard Egan and William H. Kimball went in company, and afterwards joined by Ricks and Bartholomew, all having horses. They proceeded at a rapid pace about 6 miles down the river, and as they went, heard a number of shots fired, which created much anxiety for the safety of those on foot. When about 6 miles from camp, they came suddenly upon a party of about 10 armed Indians who appeared very hostile. But the brethren did not anticipate any danger, their object being to hunt for the cattle, and if they found any, to drive them back. However, immediately on the arrival of the brethren amongst the Indians, the latter fired several shots, one of which took effect on Ricks, who fell from his horse onto the ground, apparently dead. You know what? I don't know if that's how he died. So, but did he really die? It's kind of like reading a story. It is a story. At the same instant, Howard Egan observed an Indian standing about 20-25 feet from them and taking a dead aim with his rifle at William H. Kimball. Quick as thought, he leveled his pistol and fired at the Indian to save William's life. The rifle fell from the Indian's hand, but in falling, it exploded, the ball passing through the fleshy part of William's horse hip. The Indian then ran off, but during this scene, another Indian had fired upon Egan, the ball passing through his right arm above the wrist, mangling it severely, which caused his pistol, a 6-shooter, to drop to the ground. Another ball passed through his horse's neck, which caused him to wheel around, making it difficult for Egan to keep the saddle. The brethren then saw it was best to retreat on account of lack of numbers and arms, and seeing that the Indians were determined to fight, all the scenery was but the work of a moment, during which time shots were heard in several other directions. The brethren then drew off towards camp some distance, leaving Ricks on the ground, and on looking back they observed one of the Indians proceed towards where Ricks lay, and they feared it was to scalp him. Yes, this stuff did happen. However, he only picked up the pistol and then followed the others down the river. Mr. Egan soon grew faint with loss of blood and had to be held on his horse by William Kimball, who also bound up his arm with his handkerchief to staunch the blood. It's graphic. They then proceeded on towards the camp until they arrived at the place where they crossed the river, being now on the east side. And here they found several other brethren and informed them of Rick's situation, requesting them to fetch him to camp, which they agreed to do. And starting accordingly, Mr. Egan and William Campbell then proceeded slowly towards the camp, taking a circuit towards the bluffs to avoid the timber until they saw some wagons going towards the camp, which proved to be a company with Martin H. Peck. On arriving at the wagons, E.R. Egan was put in one of them, being very faint with loss of blood, and they soon after arrived at the fork of the Elkhorn. Here, Dr. Parahysel was sent for and he dressed the wound and ascertained that no bones were broken. The facts above being made known in camp, Brother Joel Ricks and T. Whittle, with one or two others, took a light wagon and started to fetch up Brother Ricks's son, proceeding down the east of the river. On arriving near the place where they expected to find the wounded, they were surprised and taken prisoners by a party of 20 to 30 Indians, who took them some distance down the river. The brethren had a trunk or trunks in the wagon, which the Indians ransacked, taking a number of articles and a good coat worth $15, which was a lot of money back then, I'm guessing. After doing this and making many signs and gestures of a hostile character, they let the brethren go without further harm, and they immediately returned toward camp, learning, by the way, that the wounded man had already been taken to camp by the route on the other side of the river. Those brethren who started at the request of E.R. Egan and William Kimball, I wonder if that's like Erastus Egan or something, together with others who joined them, went back to the place where the affray took place, and found Brother Rick still laying on the same place and alive. Yay! He didn't die. Okay, this is history right here. So, seems kind of like a book, though, in which he was placed, and about 2 o'clock arrived with him in his father's wagon. Dr. Bernhisel examined him and found that he was wounded by 3 large buckshot, having penetrated the small part of his back. The doctor dressed his wounds, but it was generally believed that he could not long survive. However, President Kimball and 1 or 2 others laid their hands on him and prayed for his recovery. The Lord heard their prayers, and he revived immediately. There were still 1 or 2 brethren missing, who went out on foot, and much anxiety was felt on their account. But towards evening they arrived safe. The Indians succeeded in killing and carrying off an ox belonging to E.R. John Pack. But on starting away from the Elkhorn, a stray ox came to his wagon, for which no owner could be found, so that the loss was a measure made up. About 3 o'clock, the camp commenced moving off from the river, as it was considered wisdom to leave the timber as soon as possible, and all the wagons being over which had then arrived, so that we should not be in so much danger from the attacks of the Indians, who it is pretty certainly ascertained are of the Omaha and the Otto. I'm wondering if that's like Otto tribes. And from every circumstance are undoubtedly in the neighborhood for the purpose of plundering us for cattle and TC. I'm not sure what that is. Omaha Indian, or Omaha. That's kind of cool. If you know about the Omahas, Brother C.P. Lott, Joseph Fielding, Sister Mary Smith, and families had been expected at the Horn soon after dinner, and as it oh, you know what? You can read this. Soon, I don't have to do the quotes or anything. Soon after dinner, and as it was known, that they were not far distant from anxiety, or some anxiety was felt for their safety. After the camp had moved about 2 miles and the encampment had been formed, President Kimball sent back 10 footmen, well armed, to meet Brother Lott and company. And about 5 o'clock, they arrived, all safe, with the exception of having broke an axle tree and being very short of team. The wagons were soon ferried across, the chain attached to the raft taken up, the raft made fast, and the last wagon composing this company on the way to camp. And before dark, we had the satisfaction of seeing about 110 wagons formed in one corral preparatory to our proceeding. On the long journey west, those who were wounded felt as well as could be expected after the short journey. So this is from the Journal of President Heber C. Kimball, Division of the Latter-day Saint Immigrants. Journeying from winter quarters. Okay, good. This is back in winter quarters, Omaha Nation, to the Valley of the Great Salt Lake during the summer of 1848. You can find it in the book 94B Church Archives. Okay, I think that's pretty good. There's more to read. If you found this interesting, let me know. If you want to hear more or learn more, I can do more. But I'm going to leave that with you. It's, just learning about the history. You can catch a picture of what really was going on during the time. And I think it's important to think of it how it was rather than trying to put it into our own perspective, because like I said, today's day is completely different than what it was back then. They're fighting for their own safety. They're traveling across the plains. That's a good pioneer story too. If you like that, leave a like, give me some comments, and I will catch you on the next one. Thanks.